It was enough for us. The empty cans of Anchor beer, the empty pizza boxes, the nights dancing in nightclubs, the drunken tuk-tuk rides home. It was enough. Back then, the city was filled with potholes, but we had learned to veer around them, anticipate them before they could be seen. When it rained, as it so often did, we learned to take shelter under the roofs of Caltex gas stations and wait for the rain to pass. Our world had changed with those two pink lines. You caught me in passing by the bathroom door, not quite in firm grasp, the stick in my hand. You asked me, "What is that?" At first rhetorical, not quite weighted in the answer, no real investment in what I had to say. And then your eyebrows raised in such a way that made my stomach drop. I knew what it meant to you. You tried not to make any sudden moves. You held me as I swelled, growing larger with life. Your hand was never too far from my left, and when I called, you always came. Virginia Woolf was replaced with the continuum concept. Those pizza boxes were replaced with the empty salad trays. And the empty cans of Anchor beer were replaced with the empty glasses containing remnants of freshly made organic smoothies. The nights we spent dancing in nightclubs were replaced with early nights in, and insomnia was replaced with sleep. Lots and lots of sleep. I swelled until I could not hold you in any longer. Everything about your arrival was just as it had said in books. The average labor, 12 hours, you came in 11. The average baby size, 3.5 kg, you were 3.46. The contractions were bearable up until they weren't. I crossed that path of no return that the book spoke about, and I felt my world morph into something completely different, something I couldn't anticipate. You ripped through me like hot, piercing shards of glass. I felt my body shred into pieces, my bones deconstruct and then reconstruct into something new. Only when you took your first breath could I allow myself to feel the weight of my sacrifice. Life became a series of conclusions and delusions. We remained for a while in a one-bedroom flat, and for a while it was okay for us. In the space where you used to hold me, I now held her, and when sometimes you came to reach for my hand, it wasn't always there. In the moments not having her at arm's length, I felt a gut-wrenching pain, like something must be wrong. I stopped looking to the ground from tall heights. Our bedtime became 7:30 p.m. sharp, and mornings were always tired, no matter how much coffee we drank. Every hour on the hour, she woke until she was 3. Resistance, she had told me. Let go of resistance, and so I did. When you come from an unstable childhood, you learn to not get too comfortable in your footing. For if you do, you may fall, stumble back into the deep, dark hole you have taken so long to claw your way out of, with the dirt under your fingernails to prove it. There is no ladder in that hole. You must reconstruct them from the remnants of what they had left you, accidentally, of course. Not everybody makes it out of that dark hole. I had spent my life reconstructing myself, trying to find myself in the pages of notebooks and books to reconstruct the image I thought I was and not who somebody else thought I should be. But no book could have prepared me for everything you taught me. I learned to sit still and embrace all of the moments that you gave me. You taught me to look up when I used to look down, and in doing so, I saw the stars and the moon, and I realized they had always been there. I had always been there. When you become a mother, it's natural to sacrifice parts of yourself. And for me, I want to sacrifice every part of myself. I wanted to give you everything I felt I never had. I not only gave you my oxygen mask, but I also held the weight of the plane in anticipation of it ever falling down. One day, I had caught it in passing, my reflection, distorted by the cracks and the fragments that had been misplaced. When I searched for the fragments and retrieved the ones that had been lost, I realized that they no longer fit. Life is a series of births and rebirths. My life had become a series of household chores and play dates. learning to ask for help and accepting that it would never come, putting the toys back into the boxes 17 times a day, negotiating bedtimes and TV times and just one more book. You cried, I held you, you called, I came. My left hand was never too far from your right. And then you grew. Life became about school drop-offs and pickups. I found certainty in my work, in starter and exit tasks, in notebooks, in new ones and old ones, in facilitating discussions and debates, in grades and marking. I realized that you were sometimes okay without me there. Your ideas are wonderful, every single one of them. That is what you wrote to me on a post-it note during that department meeting. In this space, I started to feel like me again. And then our world changed with those 2 pink lines again. It was the kind drawn from a lotus flower tin of pink paint, only to be spread across a cream wall and sit like fuchsia. I told you on your birthday and your words were, oh, fuck. You knew what it meant to me. You came unpredictably, unlike what any of the books had said. Where there were once smiles by the strangers gazing at my expanding room, there were now looks of disdain and disgust. I had been so excited to work for a woman. When you hired me, you had said, we're so excited to have you on our team. But now your words felt different. You will have to resign, of course. I thought I had misheard you. I asked you to clarify what you mean by resign and of course. We won't be paying you any maternity pay and we won't be able to replace you. So you will have to resign, of course. I asked you to clarify just exactly what you meant by resign and of course. So I learned to walk through the corridors silently. I wore loose-fitting clothes as to not draw attention to my ever-growing wound. In department meetings, when you kicked, I pretended I couldn't feel you. My mornings had become a series of fights against my body, trying to hold in the chunder long enough to find a vacant cubicle. I searched for extra jobs because simply fulfilling all of my professional responsibilities and bearing human life was not enough. I had to pretend as though you did not exist, as though I, as mother, did not exist, as though bearing human life was something of the ordinary. What I once felt as the most amazing experience in the world was now something to be ashamed of. So for a moment, I fell into that dark hole again, torn between wanting to love you in every essence of my being and feeling as though I couldn't. I sat there a while until one terrifying moment when I realized what sitting there for too long could actually do. If I was not willing to fight, then why would you? It was different here. There was a ladder constructed by all of the mothers that had made it before me, each rung holding a story of its own. So I gripped and I climbed with the dirt under my fingernails to prove it. I put on a tighter shirt and I walked through those corridors looking at everybody that passed my way. When you walked in my direction, you walked in the opposite way. I realized in that moment my strength. You came into this world unpredicted, unexpected, not like what the books had said. Every push, a hot, sharp, piercing razor blade. I remember in that moment a passing thought, like maybe, perhaps what they had said, maybe I couldn't do it. It was in that moment I realized the look on the midwife's face. As she retrieved from her green bag the oxygen mask, I knew something had shifted. I gripped onto the sides of the inflatable pool and I pushed as hard as I could. It didn't matter how hard it stung, and it stung. I had to get you here. And suddenly I felt an emptying. Now you were there beneath the blood-filled waters, but you were still. Your lips were cerulean, your skin stone grey. I will never forget the moment when I brought you close to my breast and your head flopped back in such a way that made me feel as though it was connected by a single piece of fragile string. Just as the midwife came to put the oxygen mask on your doll-like expression, I searched and searched for signs of life flowing through your body, but I could not find it. With one cut in the sponged umbilical cord, suddenly you started to change colour. Like a thick helping of fuchsia on the end of a wet paintbrush, in murky blue waters, you suddenly started to change into a range of pinks. Only when you had your first breath could I allow myself to feel the weight of yet another sacrifice. Mothers often walk through this world acting like the very act of bearing human life is ordinary, but it is not. It is extraordinary. We have been taught to talk and behave as though bearing children is simply nothing. We house the very human that will walk this earth, in our minds, in our bodies, in our souls, in every essence of our being. We grant the world our children and we hope that the world will treat them well, knowing that sometimes it doesn't. When I asked my husband if there was a word in Khmer that could possibly embrace the essence of everything that a mother is, he gave me the words Preah, which roughly translates as God alive. So it got me thinking, if God is an all-powerful, all-knowing being, if God is the creator of all of humanity, if God sacrifices everything for her children, then I would say I have to agree that mothers are Preah, we are God alive. Thank you.